Hey there, welcome to Daily Grace. We're so glad you're with us today. I've got a great friend with me all the way from China, Scott Finnemore, who serves with a group called Leadership Development International. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But Scott, thank you for joining us all the way from China.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Jason.
Well, okay, so Scott, you work over there, but actually you have two connection points to the body at Grace Fellowship. And
That's
one
right.
of them is very close to home. You happen to be the cousin of my wife.
That's right. My dad and Sue's mom are brother and sister.
Isn't that great? So they go back a long way, your dad and my, yeah.
Oh, well, more than 80 years. Very
That's
long way.
Marilyn, we did not say that. 70 years, we think, 70 years. No, that's great. And you and Sue, I mean, I have had the best family reunion stories from Sue and or Susan and Sherry. So Scott, it's fun to be with you. We've had you actually in Kinston, which that's the second point of connection with Grace Fellowship is you went to college with one of our favorite folks at Grace.
That's right. Kent and I both went to Pensacola Christian College back in the day.
And you were a couple, 1 year or 2 years apart? I
Yeah,
forget.
something like that. It fades. It fades in the memory.
I'm so sorry. That's true. I'm putting you on the spot there. But anyway, Ken, and you probably did you teach him all the funny things to say, Scott?
No, no. Maybe he was teaching me actually.
He is yeah, he's very good. It's really good to have a worship pastor who also is hilarious and can bring both in the same thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
I think the Lord likes coming to our church the best. But anyway, that's for another day. Listen, you live in Tianjin. Is that correct?
That's pretty good. Tianjin, China. That's right. Near Beijing.
How far from Beijing?
I'd say 100 kilometers, so about 60 miles.
Okay.
It's the largest city you've never heard of. It's about 15 million people living here with me.
Wow, 15 million people in Tianjin with you. Are they all in your apartment complex?
Well, we spread out a little bit, yeah. A couple more apartment complexes too.
Just a little bit. So tell us about your family and then tell us why you're there.
All right. So Angie, my wife, and I, we were married in 1999 in June. And then in August, we came across to China. So our entire married life, we've been here in Tianjin, China together. We have two kids. Hudson is just finishing grade 11 today. Actually, this is the last day of school.
Congrats.
And Noel is just finishing grade 7. And we work here for an educational company that runs international schools. And Angie's a teacher in the school here. And I've had various leadership roles in the school and in our company over the last few years.
And your role right now is Executive Vice President of Education Services. So what does that entail?
Well, we have 6 schools in this country, international schools. We have some other education projects. We have a school in the United Arab Emirates, and we're doing new things, trying new stuff. And so my job is to kind of oversee that, the package of educationally related things that we do in these various countries.
That's very fun. And you like it?
I do, definitely.
What's one of the most rewarding things about what you do there?
Well, I mean, I was thinking about this question earlier, and I think this is probably true for most educators, just seeing the lives of people changed. Kids and teachers and other people to whom we can reach out and train and so forth. That is definitely super rewarding.
How about challenging?
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about that one too. I think especially in recent years, things have gotten tighter here. It's kind of weird to have a Christian-based company functioning in a country like this. But for many years, they were super pragmatic and relaxed about things. And so we had quite a bit of room to work. And that margin has really shrunk. So that, along with the economic challenges and so forth that have come, especially in recent months, have kind of put us into a place where it's more about surviving and just just making it work, and less about, lots of freedom to go out and do stuff and engage in new projects and so forth. So that tightness has been a challenge in recent years for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so here we are in Eastern North Carolina, and we're not in the major cities of Boston or New York or Charlotte or Atlanta. We're in a smaller town. In fact, actually, tell Hudson as he graduates today that, which your today is Friday and my today is Thursday,
Right.
even though we're going to show this next Tuesday. It's crazy. But anyway, Starbucks is opening in Kinston on Friday, the day Hudson is graduating. Like, we've lived here 17 years. We've never had a Starbucks, and I can't wait to pay
Wow.
$17 for a cup of coffee.
Yes. I can walk to 3 Starbucks from my house, just so that you know.
Isn't that crazy? Well, we make pretty good coffee at home, but it is sort of a, wow, isn't that interesting? All that to say, a tiny little bit off the beaten path, which I think is a fantastic thing. We have a lot of fun. One of the things is the coronavirus, and you have probably had a really different experience over the last 3 or 4 months than most of us in Eastern North Carolina. Tell us a little bit first of all, what floor do you live on of your apartment building? And then what was it like when you were kind of locked down?
Okay. We live on the 5th floor in an apartment building. We have elevators, so we can go up and down in them. But just to turn the clock back a little bit, we went on in late January, we went on a vacation as a family to Cambodia and Vietnam. And we got back, and then not long, so just very early February, things just really started to go crazy here, and nobody was traveling anywhere at that point. And so one thing that I would say that was different is that when lockdown came, everybody complied. That there's a lot wrapped up in that little statement, but that is a factually correct statement that people complied. And interestingly, it didn't all happen at once. Things kind of got tighter and tighter. Our apartment complex, used to have 3 entrances and exits, and then it became 1. And then they started introducing the temperature checks, and then you had to wear a mask, and thing after thing. So there was a period there where we were wondering, how many things are we going to lose? How many tightnesses or how many degrees can this thing be cinched up? I never lost the ability to go on a morning walk. I do that every day, and I was always able to do that. Sometimes I wonder if I just missed the memo because it was in Chinese, frankly speaking.
You're the only one out there.
Yeah, well, it was the numbers of people were low, so there is the possibility that we missed a little bit of that. But I think in general, there was just, people did a lot of self-policing, and they just stopped doing things together. So I would say that we probably did more as far as we never stopped engaging with our small group that meets on Sunday morning. We always had a few people over to sing and pray and so forth. So it was maybe quite possibly not as tight as it has wound up being in many places in the U.S. for people. But we didn't travel for months, so there was definitely a sense of, this is, we can't travel anywhere. School is off. We went immediately when school was set to start. We went immediately into an online thing, and we've been doing that. We did that for about 3 months, and that was a little challenging to get used to, as everybody there is also aware. But because it started earlier, we all came back to school for the last 2 to 4 weeks. So we finished face to face, which was really nice.
I bet you almost every kid here would have loved that as much as.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was really nice to be able to do that.
And I guarantee you every teacher would have loved that.
Yes.
Zoom teaching is tough, and every teacher deserves a bonus like you would not believe.
For sure. And I will add, Jason, just so that you know, there's still uncertainty hanging because many of our staff continue to be outside of China. Our newly hired staff are outside of China. And the question is, will China open its borders before our next school year begins? Or are we going to have to start next school year in a similar way to what we've been doing all this time? That's not a prospect that we're relishing, but it is possible.
And do you have any sense of when the border may open, or what's the latest news, which is,
Well, the number of flights is definitely increasing. But again, the passengers on those flights so far are just Chinese that are returning. So
Mm.
but things are happening, conversations are happening that make you think, okay, there's some momentum here. So we'll see.
How did it happen? Like how many cases were in your city? Or do
It
you even
wasn't,
remember?
yeah, I mean, again, the number of cases is a politically sensitive issue as well, right?
Mm.
But
Sure.
the number of cases in our city was just measured in the thousands. So, I mean, at the highest, China was dealing with 5 to 8,000 cases a day, and the U.S. even now is still about 20,000 cases a day after all this time. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a little bit interesting, right? But
Right, right.
the numbers were definitely quite low, no doubt about it.
One last question there, because I honestly, I wonder if a lot of our people could place, like, if on a map, if Beijing and Tianjin are sort of over to, if they're looking at China, over to the right, and in the
Yes.
northeastern quadrant, where's Wuhan?
Okay. So if you think about the U.S. geography and compare it to China geography, then Tianjin is going to be like Philadelphia-ish,
Okay.
and it's both in its latitude and in its placement in the country. And then Wuhan would be more like, let's say, Memphis.
Okay.
So
That's a
something
good.
like that. It's in the middle and it's farther south.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you used that one before? Like
No, I
that
just the Philadelphia thing I use regularly, but the Memphis thing
just figured
I
it out.
just walking in Memphis. Anyway, it just all popped into my head at the same time.
Huh.
So
It's been a long time since we've heard any Mark Cohn on the podcast. That's really good, man. So you guys are, for the first, I think I remember you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago. For the first summer in almost 20 summers, you are going to spend the whole time in China.
that's right. Yep,
Usually,
no going back to the States. That's right. So we're looking forward to that.
yeah, Shanghai Disney.
Yeah, right. Maybe not.
Okay, no, maybe not. Maybe the Great Wall. How many times have you been to the Great Wall?
A
I'm not
great number
talking
of
about the
times.
buffet. I'm not talking about the buffet.
Yes. Yeah. Got it. Got it. I would imagine 10. Something like that.
Wow,
So.
be amazing to see. What is your favorite place to visit in China? Like when you're in the country? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just pick one. There's definitely more than one, but I really enjoy in southern China. There's a town called Guilin. It has these very iconic, almost ice cream shaped mountains. They just rise up like cones out of this. They're limestone karst kind of, and there's this really cool river, the Li River, that winds through there. So it's a bit of a tourist trap, but it's a beautiful area.
Well, and that's why, right?
Yeah, for
Beautiful
sure, for
people
sure.
when they come see. Wow.
They
Well,
have a
you're making
Starbucks too.
me,
Sorry.
Starbucks, thank you. You're making me want to Google it, but I know I'm not going to be able to spell it right. But I'm going to try with the Li River. Lei.
Yeah, yeah. Or just Guilin is Guilin.
Okay, Guilin, Guilin. Okay, all right.
Yes.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions, or let's talk a little minute as someone who is American but is not living in the U.S. right now, and as we're looking around the world, and then even from afar, you have family here. Your dad lives in Florida, and your sister, I think, is, or maybe she's in Europe, but I know you have family and your wife's family, and then watching, George Floyd and the protests and even the
Mm,
riots and then the back and forth. And I mean, I'm just interested in your perspective on all of it, like Corona and economy and politics, but also what you're hearing from friends who live in Tianjin. What are they thinking about America as they watch it? It's just interesting for me to think about. How would you
right.
kind of answer some of that? It's a lot.
Right. So maybe on the, like, I'll say a more positive comment and a more negative comment. So democracy is messy. It's a lot more messy than if one person is just in charge and they call the shots.
Yeah.
And in the process of coronavirus unfolding, when there's just so many voices in the US saying what we should do and calling into question what's being done and so forth. From a Chinese perspective, where the authoritarian government just said, this is how we're going to do it, it seems incredibly messy. And frankly, it's not the best context in which to observe the wonderful nature of democracy, right?
Right.
And then, of course, when we get into the whole series of riots and the things around George Floyd and so forth, then that's just one more layer to the cake as far as the messiness of democracy and people protesting and voicing their opinions and concerns and so forth. So yeah, I think that the Chinese right now they're saying, if America is so wonderful, then why all this mess? That kind of thing. So they don't appreciate that the same thing that, it's just, it all goes together, and the good stuff and the bad stuff all comes together in one piece. So
because freedom also means freedom to be messy.
Right.
And different voices speaking and all that. Anyway.
That's right. And there's good things that come from that, but obviously the bad things are the things that are most prominently on display right now, in some senses. So the other thing that I would say, and this is more of a global comment, I would say, is just the rise, it seems like the rise of tribalism. So think about it like this way, like Brexit, or the US-China, or current things in Europe where the European Union is not so unionized, so not such a union. And then, of course, all of these things with different groupings in the US, the various kinds of polarization that are happening. And that is, that just seems to be a worldwide phenomena. And so it's such an opportunity for the body of Christ for people to really see how amazing it really is, that, on the basis that Jesus put to death the hostility, the Ephesians 2 idea that he's talking about between Jews and Gentiles. It's these polarized groups that no way on earth could they be together, but they are together because of the cross. So I think that the tribalism thing that's on the rise provides a stark contrast for the connection and the unity that can exist in the body. And that can be a ever stronger testimony against that backdrop, essentially.
Yeah, that's so good. Tribalism, we had a woman, when I first moved here, we had a woman in our church named Miss Georgia, and everyone who was there a long time ago will remember Miss Georgia. She's just a beautiful African-American kind of grandmother in our town, and she came to Grace for a while, but she would always talk, and Jimbo Perry, one of our brothers here, he's the one that kept reminding us of it, that she'd always say, but people are only thinking about my four and no more.
Yeah.
And not think about their neighbors. And that's tribalism in my own heart.
Right.
When all I care about is my four and no more.
Yes. Yes. So, and then maybe one other thing I'll just throw in is that genuine, authentic Christianity is just unwelcomed. And it's unwelcomed in many ways. It's unwelcomed where you are and where I am. And that it's just sticking out to me more and more that this is the trajectory here is not, it's not so great in that regard, right? It's not becoming more and more widely embraced at all.
It's not. No, you're right. So where do you find hope? Just kind of last minute here as we wind up this Daily Grace. Where do you find hope, Scott, today?
Yeah, well, it can't be circumstantial, right? Mm-hmm. So just the idea that God, I mean, even I've seen this, COVID is a horrible thing, but he is using it to accomplish things, to shake things, and to make room for things that could never have happened otherwise. I mean, even on a very simple and basic example would be, we're doing a whole lot more and preparing to do a whole lot more as a company in online education. Guess what gave us the push? COVID. Right. Just one small example. And at first I was like, God, you are slowing us down. We just got to sit here and wait until this thing's over until we can get back on with our strategic planning. I'm like, wait a minute, Slap. Actually, this is the strategic planning, and it's reorienting our priorities. So that I mean, just to see that God is, I mean, Jesus says God is always at work. My Father is always at work. John 5.
Yeah.
He is. He is. So that's a hopeful thing.
That is. And this morning in my own daily Bible reading, Romans 8, like I just, God is working all things for the good of those
Yes.
who are called according to his purpose. Like he has got a purpose. He's calling us to it, and he's going to work it all out. And it's not for my comfort. It is for my good.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, Scott, this is so good to talk to you. Thank you. I know if it's the last day of school, it means as one of the key leaders in the school, it's a very busy day. So I really appreciate you taking the time for the folks here at Grace.
It's good talking to you too, Jason.
Well, we'll see you next time you get here. And everybody, thanks for joining us on Daily Grace, and we'll see you next time.